Jeff, only good weather, right? Like only good weather here.
We're going to try to oblige today. I think we can come through at least for the short term here. Thanks, Monica, and good morning. And I think as Monica introduced here today, is one of those days where you wish you could somehow box it up and keep it for a future date. It's just almost optimal conditions, but it is a little cool in some parts, and we do have some in some parts of the state actually had a little bit of frost and even a couple freezing temperatures. I'll show you that in just a minute here. But I want to start looking at the last week because depending on where you are or where you are in the state, we had a wide variety of conditions here. It was once again, it was a warmer than normal week, especially because of the well, very, very pleasant and summer-like conditions we had late last week and then into the weekend. And then, of course, we had a formation of an upper trough, which we talked about last week over the region here over the last few days, and that's brought our temperatures back down and also brought an extended period of unsettled weather in some parts of the state. But for the on the left-hand side here, mean temperature departures range from generally about a degree or two above normal in the far north and northwest to as much as 6 or 7 degrees above normal in the southeast, and that reflects a pattern that we've seen for a while. Now, the really interesting parts here, again, I mentioned location, were precip, and it's with this very active storm track that we've had through the central part of the U.S., and this is what's related to all of the severe weather. Fortunately, Michigan generally has been on the very, very northeastern fringe of this, and conditions have been a lot more challenging to our west and to our south. But in general, this active weather pattern we had led to a number of chances of precip, especially over the last several days. And some areas of the state had precip almost every day. Others either had less or certainly had a lot less precipitation, but in the middle, I got both in the middle, the accumulated precip totals for the week, and then on the far right, I've got that expressed as in terms of a percent of normal. And you can see a huge difference between the northwestern lower and portions of upper Michigan, where we had as much as 3 inches in the last week, to the southwestern and west central lower, where we had some cases less than a quarter of an inch. So huge, huge difference. That's not that it happens, but this week was particularly striking. But you can see that again on the far right hand side, expressed in percent of normal. 3 inches for late May is still that's over 200% of normal, and that's what you can see there. Even some 300% of normal versus less than half of normal and others. So big difference. And of course, in terms of impact and what that has led to is we had a lot of work done in some places, but in other spots like the northern lower and portions of the extreme eastern lower, we had lots more rain, and of course there were more and more delays, unfortunately. So it's again, this last week, how you look at it is going to greatly depend on where you are in the state, and probably that will be more the same as we look here at the upcoming week. Now, I did mention here this is a weather map here for an hour ago, or a little over an hour at 6 a.m. And the for each of these little sites, the station sites here, the red number in the upper left to the circle where the station is located, that's the air temperature. And you can see we had a lot of 30s reported here earlier this morning, including some freezing temperatures still in interior upper Michigan, but also notice even in the northern lower, 34 Cadillac here. Then again, that was at 6 o'clock. So high pressure from Canada right over the region here this morning. That's led to this. Well, it's more of a early spring type of morning. Temperatures further south, down across the southern lower, generally in the 40s, but still and cooler than normal start to the day. But with this high pressure here, it's going to be a gorgeous day after today. And in general, this is not some type of a huge, certainly anything like a killing freeze or anything like that. But just a reminder that we are on the end of the season. We can still get freezing temperatures in interior northern areas of the state into June. That's not very common there, but we are still at the end of the season there. Farther south, central and southern lower Michigan, it's getting climatologically, we're pretty much getting close to the edge or the end of what we would expect to see or be possible. So soil moisture, given those differences in precipitation I mentioned, we're looking here now just at the top 15 or 16 inches of the profile. So this is topsoil expressed as a percentile versus climatology. And again, a wide variety here from too much or wetter than normal conditions across northern, lower, large portions of upper Michigan, especially in the east, and also the southeastern lower. That's where those darker blues are. They're indicating, again, high percentiles, which again is high relative to the climatology. In contrast, if you can see, it's a little difficult, but there are some tans and some browns here across south central and west central lower Michigan, where those precip totals have been much less. And again, that's where a lot of the work, field work, planting especially, has taken place. But a lot of people, if you look at the statistics here from USDA, a lot has taken place here over the last 1 to 2 weeks, despite all of the days with precip. Some of that has had to do with relatively high potential evapotranspiration rates and relatively rapid drying. That's a good thing. So even when we have rain, it's being evaporated more quickly. So things react or respond more quickly than they typically do for this time of the year. Soil temperatures have fallen off given the cooler temperatures here over the last few days, but our 2-inch bare soil temperatures on the left hand side here in Michigan now, generally the averages from the upper 50s in the far north to the mid and even a couple of upper 60s now in the south. And on the right hand side here, this is from our EnviroWeather site in East Lansing. The dark red is the air temperature, and then the bars down below that in brown, those are the soil temperatures. And you can see, well, you can see a couple things. One is look at the wide swings in temperature we had with those summer-like conditions late last week and into the beginning of the weekend, and the soil temperatures responded just as well. But when we got some of the unsettled weather here over the last few days, especially on our Memorial Day holiday on Monday, that's the day here where we have very, very little change either up or down in temperature during the day. And we've because of the cooler weather here recently, we've dropped off about 2, 3, 4 degrees Fahrenheit from where we were during the weekend. So not much of a drop. You can see here at this site, it's still the average at 2 inches is still around 60 degrees. So we've lost a little bit, but it's still fairly warm out there, and it's still warmer than the climatology tells us. So that's another thing that we've had with given the warm spring. Our degree day totals, and this one I would note, this is looking now at corn or base 50 degree days with the corn method. So that's the 86 and 50 degree Fahrenheit cutoffs. And it's also looking from the beginning of May. So this is specifically looking at corn as if it were planted at the beginning of May. And our totals for that range from, a little less than 200 in the far north to more than 400 in the south. And that's on the left-hand side here. How does that vary from the climatology, from normal? You can see that it's pretty close to normal in the far northwestern parts of the state, up in upper Michigan, but it's significantly ahead of normal down, especially in the southeast. We have positive surpluses there of over 100 units. That again, that translates to more than 20%. That's a pretty large departure. So the South continues to, at least in terms of thermal accumulation and in terms of degree days and heat, be way ahead, or at least a 1 to 2 calendar weeks that would translate to at this time of the year. So let's look at the forecast I mentioned today. Just gorgeous. You can see all these blue H's here. That's that Canadian air mass right over the top of the region. That's why we have a clear, calm type of weather situation out there with, again, with cool, dry air over the state. And that's going to be there for at least the next 24 to 48 hours, essentially what we're looking at. So today, look for a little bit like yesterday, but a little bit of a northerly breeze in most areas. High temperatures below normal by a couple degrees, upper 60s north, low 70s south, full sun. If you can get out and take advantage of it, this is a day. And you're here with us to look at the virtual breakfast, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of activity here today in some parts, because it will be almost an ideal day. Now, by tomorrow, you can see the high begin to edge off to the east, but still for the vast majority of the state, we're not a carbon copy of today, but pretty close to it with a couple degrees warmer temperatures. We should be well into the 70s for highs tomorrow. So it will, in most spots, it'll be noticeably warmer tomorrow. Still sunny, but the next weather system of influence for us here, which will be coming this weekend, you can see off to our west. It's a cold front with some weak low pressure out over the central plains. That will begin to cause an increase in clouds, especially western upper Michigan by late in the day or the evening, with a chance of showers. Now, this is not a huge weather system. It's actually a fairly weak one. Moisture is going to be limited with this. And as we move into Saturday, you can see it does edge by Saturday morning into at least western parts of the state. So expect at least the chance for some scattered rainfall, mostly scattered showers, beginning late in the day, far western upper Michigan, and then into the evening hours, moving into central upper Michigan. And then for most of the state, though, this would be coming in the early morning hours or during the day on Saturday. And we're not talking widespread rainfall here, generally talking about 40% chance of precipitation in a spot, and where it falls, probably a couple tenths. So not a big rain producer, but here's the I think the other message here is that this system basically stalls out, and we're going to have a series of weak weather systems for Sunday and Monday, and then into the early part of next week. So we'll also see a warming trend. And so while we have almost a daily chance for we'll call it scattered showers and maybe a thunder shower, not widespread precip expected, but a continuing threat. That's not an easy thing to plan for. But we also will see definitely a significant warm up. And by the end of the weekend and early next week, our high temperatures in many spots will be up to near 80 again, maybe probably some low 80s for high temperatures by early next week. And the low temperatures from tomorrow morning, a few degrees warmer than they are this morning. So looking at maybe some upper 30s still left over in the far north, but most of the state will be in the 40s here tonight for low, and then into the 50s this weekend and continuing into next week. So definitely warm up is in store here with a prolonged chance of, and I think about Marty and the managing all these diseases. That's not a good one because it's just sort of a hit and miss type of thing. We aren't looking at a widespread type of event, but there will be areas that certainly have a threat, and some spots that probably do see rain on several days here from the weekend into the middle of next week. Precip totals for the upcoming week, even despite that increased frequency or the threat of precipitation, are going to be on the lighter side. So probably below normal. From the graphic here for Michigan, you can see some spots possibly seeing 3/4 of an inch, especially in upper Michigan, and then along the far southern part of the state. That's where we will have the highest probabilities. And again, this is a result of both the precip on Saturday and then following that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday type time frame, cumulative over that period. But even with that, and if it does rain on most spots, still less than half an inch. So again, it probably a drier will be terming warmer, and then at least for the short term, drier than normal. Now, beyond that, the guidance does suggest more in the way of precipitation in terms of actual value or totals. And our medium range forecast, we've got some mixed messages. Oh, before I get to the medium range, our potential evapotranspiration rates with those air temperatures increasing over the next few days are going to continue above normal, generally running from about 1500s to 1900s per day on average. So again, still above normal evaporative demand for almost all of the state expected in the upcoming week. Now, the medium range, this is we don't see this that often, but it does happen once in a while, and it's a little bit of a challenge. But for our 6 to 10 day outlook, the jet stream flow here, you can see somewhat zonal with ridging out over a broad ridge over the western part of the U.S. But this is what we were talking about for the middle to latter part of next week. Definitely warmer than normal mean temperatures, and then normal to above normal precip total. So again, a little bit wetter than what we just saw for the short term here, but a lot of the same kind of pattern that we've been in for a while. When we move beyond that first week of June into the second week of June, then the guidance suggests formation of a trough. And you can see that. So a big difference. I'll go back, flip back and forth. You can see the trough right over the Great Lakes region. And what that would, if this happens, and it's still, it's out there in terms of the forecast, but the models have been consistent for a couple of days in suggesting this. But that would take us, that would bring some cooler air in from Canada for the middle of June and lead to a period, at least a period of cooler weather. And you can see that on the upper right. So we flip-flop from above normal in the 6 to 10 day period to below normal. And again, you don't like to see that in the outlooks, but it's been the guidance has been in following that here for a couple days. So I think it's something we have to at least think about. There may be a change, or at least a significant change out there a couple of weeks out. And notice that for precip, it puts us in most of the area most of the state into the equal odds category. But the temperature and that change in the upper air pattern, that's a big one. And it does suggest that there would be some cooler weather possibly ahead here during the middle of June coming up. And so wrapping up here again today, I don't think you can order much better weather, at least for me personally, maybe for you too, but it just doesn't get much better than this. And tomorrow, more the same, but a little bit warmer. And then we move into that period of a little bit more unsettled conditions, warm with almost a daily chance of, and we'll call it again, scattered showers, not widespread, and not particularly heavy, but just a continuing chance for much of the weekend. And then it's the early to middle part of next week, along with that, again, warmer temperatures moving back into the 70s and 80s during the day. So more like early summer. And then, as you just saw here, in the medium range, probably the warmer and wetter direction for at least the latter part of next week and into that weekend. But beyond that, keep your eyes out for a change to cooler. And it would be probably a little bit of an unsettled pattern, but certainly cooler. And I'll stop there and introduce our speaker for next week. We've got Dr. Jason DeVoe, who's with the OMAFRA, or Ontario Ministry of Ag, Food and Rural Affairs. And Jason's going to be with us next week to talk about spray application technology. So don't miss that. That's next week, and new month into the 6th of June. And with that, I'm going to hand off to Phil to talk about RUP information harmonica.